Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cup of Joe. I'm Liz Rossell with Sea Level Social, and I'm joined by Joe Pettit of Joe Pettit Inspires and Kern Halls of Ingenious Culinary Concepts. We hope that you're enjoying. We are continuing to make an episode every week, new time for them to debut Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So we are starting, as we love a good series here to tie things together. We are starting a 7-part series of the 7 virtues of a school nutrition leader. And we're going to kick it off today with trust. So be sure to check out the description for the worksheet that you can follow along with us every time. And with that, I will pass it over to Joe.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz. Kern, good to see you both as always. Good to have everybody tuned in as well. So I just want to bounce the question back at you, Kern. What do you think? Do you think that trust needs to be given first, or do you think somebody needs to earn it? What are your thoughts on it?
You know, Toss, because I know sometimes people say that, oh, you have to earn their trust, which I really do believe you need to earn your trust, but I think action speaks louder than words. So when you start being consistent in your leadership, trust plays such a big factor. So I would definitely think it's something that needs to be earned as a leader. What about yourself, Joe?
Yeah, so I always thought that way until I just recently been listening to it, and I can be swayed one way or the other, right? I can hear both sides, and I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. I'm going to say that I would vote for one more than the other. Okay. But my vote, I believe now, because I really see what it's about. I've been reading Stephen Covey's book called The Speed of Trust. He talks about it's one of the most important things as a leader. And if you think about your kitchens, you're getting new hires all the time. Unfortunately, in our industry, turnover is a very common thing. So when you get someone new that comes in, I believe that we should actually give trust first instead of having it earned. Because if we go in believing the best about them, if we go in believing that I can trust them, because really, if I don't trust them, then maybe I shouldn't have even hired them, you know? Right. So it's one of those things. I used to always say, oh, you got to earn that trust. And that was kind of what I now would call something that we have to kind of bounce back and forth. But I believe that it actually has to be given first. And then, Liz, let me ask you, do you believe when somebody breaks the trust that it's done? What do you think about that?
This is very hard for me to separate my emotions from logic. It's very tough for me to go back and trust someone after, but I know, especially in a workplace setting and trying to put myself in other people's shoes and knowing that we have to work together to try to, do that more so in a work setting. But that is very big for me to separate the emotions from the logical side of my brain.
What about you, Kern? When somebody breaks the trust, do you cast them to the sea?
No, you know what? I've learned a lot because, again, I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, and then I try to think a lot of my faith base, right? So I try to give people a little bit of grace, and if they mistrust, depending on the level of trust, right? So it's like a difference between 1 and 10. If you stole some money out of my bank account, then yeah, you're not gonna be in charge of finances anymore, right? So I can't trust you. But I think sometimes we all make mistakes. I'm human. I know I make it all the time, personally and professionally. So sometimes I try to say, okay, how bad the mistake? What was the mistake? And are they coachable and willing to rectify the situation? Kind of go from there. So it all depends on the outcome of that person.
You're so right, and I believe it can be reconciled. I believe it can be restored. I think it's a hard thing to do, which is why it's always best to do the right thing the first time and every time. But Covey in the book kind of gives us real quick of how to accelerate. So for all you school nutrition leaders, we like to give you something to think about, to chew on, and actually something that you can apply. So he talks about 3 things, and I'm going to speed through a couple of them. But I just really want you to be able to have something that if it was broken, then this is a way to accelerate it. If maybe you're a new leader and you're trying to figure out how to build that trust, or heck, we've been away from each other for months. So here it is. Number 1, he said that you have to declare your intent, meaning explain your why. Tell them why you're making this decision. Why are you going to choose to do something? I think so often, Kern and Liz, people will tell us something, but we're like, why do you really want this, right? Like, what is really the intent or the motive that we've said before? What is the motive behind it? So he first says to declare it. Go ahead and say it up front, number 1. Number 2, he says to tell them what you're going to do. And he compares it a great analogy. If you're in the middle lane on the interstate and I turn my signal on, I know I'm going off the exit. I turn the signal on for who? For me or for the people in the traffic? right? I'm turning it on for them. I'm signaling to them where I'm heading to. And that's what he says. If you want to accelerate trust, to tell them where you are going to do, what you're going to do. Sorry. And the last thing he says is to do what I say I'm going to do. That's what we normally associate with trust, is to do what you say you're going to do. But he says if you don't do the first two, it won't accelerate it. So if you declare your intent, tell them what you're going to do, and then actually deliver the goods, so to speak. And that's how we can accelerate trust inside. And as a leader, I mean, that's one of the greatest virtues, I feel. That's why we're kicking it off. Number one is to have trust. You can have profits and no trust, and what kind of kitchen are you going to have?
Right.
Not a good one.
I love it. I love the transparency of it, to show what the plan is and be able and get that buy-in too, from the team. I love that. I'm taking notes as everyone else is that's watching, and that's what I wrote down.
Yeah. And I think too, Kern, we talked about this when we several episodes back. We were talking about with parents. We were talking about as a district, as school nutrition leaders, be transparent. Last thing, we'll kind of tell off with this. How does it make you feel when someone comes to you and tells you why they're going to do it, what they're going to do, and then they deliver? How does that make you feel, Kern?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely, like you said, it builds trust. It makes you feel that this person's actually being a little bit vulnerable with me, and I know what I'm getting. And again, I like all the points that you made, and I really absolutely believe them. That's really great. And it looks from different standpoints as well, because I think that just as a parent or a child that's coming in, especially in the current situation, is that if you let them know, especially now, that hey, this is what we're going to do with your child coming back to school. This is how we're going to handle it. This is how they're going to get fed. And that will build a lot of rapport and trust with them as well, Joe.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for bringing this topic. I think that a big part of why I like that we started with trust was so much of what we've talked about has tried to set a foundation so that when plans change, COVID's changing everything. We're constantly pivoting, which we had a series on pivot. But if you trust your teammates and trust your leaders, then when it's time to pivot, you just all do it a little bit more seamlessly. So glad that we started here. And it's funny, Kern, that you mentioned being vulnerable. Our next episode will be about vulnerability. So we'll continue this 7-part series next week on vulnerability. Thank you both so much. And thank you all for watching.